everybody. Welcome to Breaking the Rules. My name's Casey Dempster, and today we're going to break some rules. But first I'm going to start with an explanation about our show and why we call it Breaking the Rules. And it's because people have change in their lives, and we can't avoid it. Some people deal well with it, some people don't. And one of the things that we feel makes a difference is if you feel that you're controlling the change, then it's easier for you to get through it. And sometimes the typical society rules or the corporate rules that are working you through the change don't fit you, so sometimes you have to break them. And today, as I said, we're going to break some rules, but first I'm going to start with our quote. And this quote is from Ziad Abdelnour, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. If everybody followed the rules, nothing would ever change. Without change, there would be no progress. And I think that's something that we really have to keep in mind, that you know, if you're not happy with how things are going in your life, change is the only option that you have. Otherwise, it's going to stay the same. So here's where we're going to start breaking the rules. Today, Ray is not a co-host. Ray is my guest, and I'm the host. And we're going to talk about Ray as the luckiest guy in the world, that he goes around telling people he is. He even has business cards that say that. And there were two things that Ray makes as his point as the luckiest guy, and one of them is that traditional retirement needs to be retired now. And his second point that we're going to get into is you need to enter the new retirement paradigm today, regardless of your age. So, congratulations, everybody. You're retired now.
Now, my turn? I'm breaking the rules again?
Yes, you're breaking the rules. And, you know, traditional retirement needs to be retired. What do you mean by that?
Well, let me back up one smidgen here, because I was a financial planner for 43 years, and we did a pretty good job of getting people to save money for retirement. But all of a sudden, we noticed people were reticent to spend it. You know, they had plenty of money. They got to that age when traditional retirement used to come into play, and they didn't for some reason. And we started looking at why this happened. And one of the things I realized is this whole concept of retirement is it represented the end of your life. It represented stopping doing what you were good at and just sitting around waiting for the end to come. And who wants to be there? Now, it was fine years ago when you worked like a dog to get to retire, and then you hit that magic day and you had this period of time to truly enjoy life. But as we live longer and longer and longer, that isn't happening anymore. So we need to break some rules and we need to make a change. So I propose, let's retire traditional retirement. Let's make believe that it's gone. And let me tell you what we meant by traditional retirement. And I think everybody knows that. So when I look at my parents, they worked really hard to reach a magic age. For them, it was age 65. You know, today maybe it's 66 or 67, but there's still that age where work is on one side, play is on the other side, the two don't mix. And what happened is all of a sudden, people worked. One day they were engaged, they were fully employed, they had structure to their life, they had income coming in the form of a salary or wages or whatever. The next day they leapt off this retirement cliff and there was no structure. And the money changed, because now what you had is you had a smaller regular chunk of money coming in. And maybe, if you saved the right way, you had a little pot of money saved aside that you were supposed to figure out how to spend for the rest of your life. Okay, so enter now the guessing game, So here you are, you're this magic age, so how long are you going to live?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
And more important than that is, so how do you ration this pot of money? And so people were afraid to spend money. And I noticed with my parents particularly that they could have taken some trips. They would have liked to have taken some trips, and they almost always backed off. And what I found out later was that they backed off because they were afraid that they'd run out of money if they didn't ration it over a long period of time.
Right, and that is a big question for people because nobody knows how long they're going to live.
Yep. Now the next thing, and this was what really bothers me, you know, people called these the golden years, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a bunch of nonsense, okay? Because the only gold that I know is the gold that we pay to the doctors. And again, you know, if you think of traditional retirement, so many people I know that are in this traditional retirement go from one doctor to the next doctor to the next doctor. And all they talk about is their illnesses because they don't have a structure, they don't have this expectation of this wonderful life. So I think we got to do something about this.
Okay. So, you know, cliff retirement we've just talked about, and for you, you said to me one time that it meant all or nothing. Either you're working or you're not working.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, why doesn't it work? I mean, we've talked about the fact that we're living longer and we're afraid to spend the money because nobody knows how long they're going to live and they might need it. What else? I mean, that's not the only reason. What else factors into that? Well,
the primary reason is that people don't have a plan. I mean, if you had a plan, probably you could make cliff retirement work for you to some extent. But what I find is that people don't have a sense of direction. Because they leapt off of this cliff from structure to non-structure, they sit there and they don't know what to do. So maybe they have some loose things out there somewhere that they're thinking about. But they tend to kind of sit there, and what happens then is if you don't have a plan for what you want to do, everybody else's plan wins, all right?
Okay.
So I found people just getting frustrated. I also found people that did have a semi-plan, you know, for example, play golf, and all of a sudden they played golf, and now they're bored. And one of the things I think we don't realize that comes out of our working life is that we have this sense of engagement, this sense of providing value to people. And all of a sudden, if you're not careful, when you leap into this retirement conundrum, is that the right word?
I'm not sure, but
Oh, okay. But it sounds good on tape. So whatever that right word is, you leap off into this thing and you're not feeling like you're providing engagement to people. Well, I think a life without substance over there goes downhill pretty fast.
Right, right. And I know for some people in their work life, that's their identity, that's who they are. And, you know, they're that executive, they're that social worker, they're, you know, that's who they are. And then when they retire, they kind of lose that and feel a little bit like they're drifting.
And there are two other things too, and I didn't do the two other things this way that I usually do. One of them is our network of friends is often related to the workplace. And if you think about that, you've been working for 40 some years, you're putting in 8 hours a day here, you have this whole social network that's built there. And oftentimes that's gone. Now again, you can plan around it if you have the plan, but it's gone.
Right.
And of course, I've forgotten what the second thing is. So you know, we'll figure it out, and
we'll circle back.
We'll circle back, and we'll come into this thing.
Okay, so you need to enter what you're calling a new retirement paradigm.
Yep.
Okay, and that is regardless of how old you are.
Yep.
So that's why you're telling people that you need to retire now.
Yeah, you need to retire now.
Okay.
Now the difference, if you contrast the old retirement plan to the new one, the old one is this cliff retirement. You're engaged one day, you leap off the cliff, nothing to do the next time, and if you're not careful, you just kind of fritter your life away. And remind me to bring up the centenarians later, because this is something we all have to consider. The new retirement paradigm is a very, very different way of thinking, because work and play exist in the same plane here. Okay? So in other words, in the old one, you're primarily working, and when you retire, you're primarily playing. Well, why do you want to postpone play?
Right.
Why do you want to do this? And if you like your job, and that's a big if, and we'll get back to that to some extent here, why do you want to quit it? Okay? So there are a couple of things that I've seen in my experience of talking to people. Is you've heard this story before. I was at the World Senior Games. I'm a swimmer. Okay, and to make the long story short, I ran into John, who won 6 medals in the 100 to 104 age group.
God bless him.
And he lost one event to a 101-year-old. So there's more than 2 people in the age group. And when you look at all of the people that are competing in their 90s and their hundreds, and I think centenarians are the fastest growing group of people in the country right now.
Right.
Okay, so if you're going to live that long, you can wind up being retired under cliff retirement for longer than you've worked.
Right, right. In fact, this morning, interestingly, on Good Morning America, they showed a woman who, for her 102nd birthday, skydived. And it wasn't the first time. She did it on her 100th birthday and her 101st birthday. So she's making a tradition. She goes skydiving on her birthday.
Well,
and she looked so alert and so happy. And so, yeah, we could conceivably live to be into our hundreds.
So the idea here is, what's the plan, okay? And, you know, we talk to people over 65 about their experience with retirement, and for some it's really good, for most it's not so good. And then we talked to some of the millennials, and when we started talking about the pieces that have to go in place to live under the new retirement paradigm, they said, you know, this is for us because we can't even envision retiring. Right. You know, we're going to need so much money to accumulate to be able to live for our life expectancy that we better put this plan in place now and start doing things now, not later.
Right, right.
Now, I just remembered.
the other two things?
Yeah, but I think it's time for a break. So I think we'll come back and we'll talk about the penguins after we come back from break.
Okay, great.
RVN TV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVN TV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Breaking the Rules. I'm Casey Dempster, and today Ray Loewe is my guest. So, Ray, we've been talking about a new retirement paradigm. We've established that the old retirement paradigm doesn't work, and so retirement, as it used to be, needs to be retired.
Yep.
Okay. The second point that we started talking about is that this new retirement paradigm starts now, regardless of how old you are.
Yes.
Okay, and we talked about the balance between work and play.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your life within this new retirement paradigm.
Okay, well, I started my new retirement paradigm about 20 years ago. And I had been thinking about retirement. I was in my early 50s at the time, and I was pretty much the typical workaholic. And what you find is you're going to work every day, you're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's not enough time for play, there isn't time for vacations. I wasn't spending time on my health the way I should have. And you know, all of these factors started to add up, and then I joined a study group, and what I learned to do in that study group is to start to build in free time into my schedule and to delegate some of the things away that I shouldn't have been doing. And all of a sudden, some interesting things happened. I kind of liked my job before, but I liked it a lot better after I could get rid of the junk that I didn't want to do.
Right.
I liked it a lot better when I could actually take a vacation and go away and come back and start over again when I wanted to do that. So the question is, why did other people wait until it was almost too late? And I need to tell my penguin story here. Okay. So my wife Sandy and I were in Antarctica. To make a long story short, what you see when you're in Antarctica is ice and penguins.
Okay.
And then you go out again, you see ice and penguins. But the penguins are different, and believe it or not, the ice looks different.
Okay.
So we found one couple that didn't come one day. And when I queried them at dinner that night, they said, well, we looked at the hill we had to walk up, and we didn't think we could make it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And they told me later that they put off taking this trip so that they would feel financially secure. And now they have all the money that they could ever need, but they can't do those things that they wanted to do.
Okay, so that's that balance that you're talking about.
Yeah, it all leads itself to, why do you want to put these things off?
Right.
Now, there are a whole lot of things that you can do from a travel standpoint and an exercise standpoint. I mean, you were telling the story that you can skydive out of an airplane at 102, right?
Yes.
But there are some things, walking up hills to see the penguins, that maybe you can't do.
Right.
So how do we plan our lives to enter this new retirement paradigm and make this stuff work for us and not put this off?
Right.
And why do we have to give up work at 65 just because the rule said that this is what was traditional?
Yeah.
Why can't we adjust the work here and the play here? And why can't we adjust the way we think about things?
It sounds to me like work is becoming sort of the crux of this whole conversation. You know, with the cliff retirement, you're working one day, the next day you're not. And it sounds to me as if what you're proposing is that we don't have to stop working, and in fact, by continuing to work, that could be a wild card.
Yeah, you know, there's no reason why you can't be the best there is, regardless of age.
Right, because actually when you get to that retirement age, oftentimes you're at the top of your game.
You're starting to get good at what you do.
Yeah.
And then they tell you got to retire. Well, that's a bunch of nonsense. So under the new retirement thinking, what you do have to do, though, is certain things. There are certain rules that you have to follow in here, but they're your rules, not somebody else's rules.
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
Well, the first thing is rethink your job a little bit, okay? If you're going to pace yourself over a long period of time, it gets really important to like what you do.
Absolutely.
And if you can, love what you do, but at least like it more and more every day. And there are ways to do this. You know, you can think a little bit about who you are and how you perform. And in fact, one of the things that we did is we set up a series of courses that can help you do that. More on that later.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is it really is important to sit back and think about your job and what you're going to do. Now, if you do it right, okay, and you keep tweaking it as you go, all of a sudden you make room and flexibility for the other things that you want to do.
Okay.
Happier family. You know, how many people have teenagers and work through the teenage years, and then all of a sudden they find out they missed the best years of their kids? And of course the teenagers leave home now, and trying to get them back is a problem.
Well, there's some that come back and you can't get them out.
Okay.
But that's another story.
You know, the whole idea here is, you know, how do you tie this together and make work kind of an interesting thing? Now, there's an aspect to this that makes it easier too. So one of the things that you want to do as part of this new retirement paradigm is rethink the way you look at money.
Okay.
Now, you don't necessarily need more money under the new retirement paradigm, nor do you need necessarily less money, although you might, either way, okay?
Right.
But one of the things that I found is if you take your security blank money and set it aside, so that if you need $100,000 a year to live off of, you have that set aside. Now, you may want a whole lot more money to play, but this needs is what you have to have set aside to be dependent. Independent.
Right, right.
So that you're never dependent on anybody else. If you got to the point where health reasons came into play, you couldn't travel, you couldn't do these other things, you're comfortable. You're staying at home, you have enough money, there's no worries. As soon as you get that, you get financial independence and you get job independence.
That's great. You know, this has been really enlightening, and I get the feeling that there is a whole lot more to say on it. But unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Okay.
So let's just say quickly, throw up our graphic again about how to prepare for the new retirement paradigm. And there's 4 things you need to know yourself.
Yep.
And know yourself really well. You have to plan out what your work life is going to be, plan out what your play life is going to be, and then make sure that your financial resources are such that they'll support what you want to do.
That's correct.
Well, that's great. Thanks so much, Ray. I really appreciate this opportunity to learn what's really going on here. And we invite everybody to come back next week when we will have another show of Breaking the Rules. And wish you all a great week. Thanks for being with us.